I've seen the Avengers Doomsday trailer. To be honest, probably a lot of you saw it as well because it's leaking all over the freaking internet right now. But don't worry, I'm not going to show anything from the actual leaked trailer in the video you're about to watch. But what I am going to show you is a segment from this morning's stream after I caught wind of what was actually in the trailer. I sort of broke it down. I also explained why the leak that I put into the video yesterday was incorrect and kind of just filled out what was going on with this trailer, what we now think is going to happen for the 4 trailers that are coming out with Avengers Doomsday. So here you go. Okay, so yesterday I got bamboozled. That's the first thing I want to start with, is explaining why I got the trailer wrong yesterday. And also why we know it was wrong, because we actually have the leaks now. Basically, guys, a lot of stuff started leaking out last week, late in the week. You'll recall we spoke about how Chris Gore was vindicated and proven to be correct, even though it's 4 trailers. Essentially, like, Chris was the only one, the first one speaking about these multiple trailers. And so kudos to Chris and Film Thread and those guys. They nailed this thing. It became clear that this was happening last week. The Hollywood Reporter dropped something late Friday. I did a video on Saturday breaking it down. We talked about it on throughout the week of streams. So it became pretty clear that this was a thing. Now, one of the reasons that people realized this was real was it came in on this like Nexus system or whatever for the trailers, an encrypted version of multiple trailers. And the way this works is these will sit there and the theaters themselves have to wait on an official encryption key to unlock the trailers. But I didn't know when that key was coming in, and I believed it could come in at different times for different markets, etc. Right? So we knew the trailers were real. We knew there was an encryption key. There was an account based out of Brazil that posted a leak about Avengers Doomsday, and I got caught up in it. And at first, because I'm kind of skeptic by nature, right? You know what I mean? I was like, oh shit, this is probably not real, you know? But then this account posted a literal 5 minutes of footage of the Odyssey. Okay? And I was like, okay. And I watched the 5 minutes of the Odyssey, the prologue, whatever, and it's dope, dude. Like, it is lit. It is really cool. But it kind of also tricked me into thinking, oh shit, like, he had the Odyssey, John, so he probably also had the accurate trailer description. Okay, I was wrong about that. So this guy basically made some shit up, then used the fact that he had access to the Odyssey's IMAX 5-minute footage to try to validate and get people to believe that he was correct. Okay, so that's how I got bamboozled. And essentially, the encryption keys did go out at midnight last night. So what happened was this Brazil account lied, and at the end of the day, look, who knows? Is this just a person looking for clout because they probably got a lot of clicks out of that? Maybe. Is this Marvel themselves trying to throw people off? Maybe. Who knows? We're going to speak a little bit more in today's stream about the sophistication of Marvel and how even these trailers might be lying to people, which is interesting, but save that thought for later. The point is, the actual trailer went out at midnight. People have it. People have unlocked it. People have watched it. Okay? And because of that, we now know that this is not, that the Brazil one was not real. Okay, so I hope that all of that makes sense. I apologize about spreading the fake rumor. I hope that you understand why I believed it. I got bamboozled. That's basically what it is. So, what's in the trailer? Big old Giga Chad Steve Rogers is in the trailer. And more. First thing to explain to you, and we will go over what other folks are saying about this. Is an actual description, because again, people have actually seen this thing. They're going to pretend that they haven't or whatever, but people have actually seen it. Good chance that it leaks. In fact, if it does leak, chat, you have to let me know. You are responsible for letting me know if the trailer actually leaks. Trailer's Steve Rogers focused. It's not only Steve Rogers focused, it is not a teaser trailer in the sense that there doesn't seem to be a lot of cuts of action or fun things like that. It is actually a scene. Now, before we get into the actual description, I just want to say that this was already kind of out there. I continue to believe that a lot of the scoopers and insiders, they had access to the trailers or they had access to the ideas of what the trailers might be around September, really, but even a little bit before that. This is why in September, and I'm gonna pull up some stuff that's gonna, like, I think blow your mind a little bit of like, oh, the scoopers in September start talking about Thor as a second lead. All of a sudden they start talking about Steve Rogers and his family and maybe he has kids and all this stuff, right? It's just so obvious that they had access to the trailers around September. But there's a lot that changed even from September, right? And so there's a lot of changes that could have happened to these different things. But the main thing you got to take away from this is these appear, at least the first 3 of them, appear to be character focused. They appear to be scenes. And I mean, look, I think I know what they're trying to establish in the minds of the normies and all of that sort of stuff. And there will be a lot to discuss here with the different things and the parallels that Marvel is trying to draw between the choices these characters made after Endgame is ultimately really what it is. But this tracks with things that we had heard as far as, like, look, I had some people say, like, this whole idea that it's going to be X-Men, Fantastic Four, and like, because remember, that was like a big rumor. That's really the thing that got Majestic. Cryptic HD fucking cooked his whole career, basically, by putting that out, and then Majestic leapt to it and posted it as real, and then Cryptic was like, gotcha, bitch, like, that's not what it is. It's not that. Well, that's because Cryptic knew, likely, that this is character-based, that it's not going to be what it is, or what Majestic was saying it was. It's not an X-Men focused, you know, mutant focused, and then Fantastic Four focused, and then Avengers focused. That's not what they're doing. And so, with all of that being said, let's now look at an article that is describing what is in the trailer. We are over on the direct.com, credit to them. Avengers Doomsday trailer footage description emerged online, and the report stated that it will revolve around an unexpected member of Earth's mightiest heroes. The hype surrounding Doomsday has been high ever since news broke that the first trailer will premiere in December 2025. In the past few weeks, more details about the trailer have dialed up the anticipation, such as its unexpected release plan. This involves being exclusively screened in Avatar Fire and Ash screenings, and the trailer being split into 4 parts across several weeks. Entertainment insider Daniel Rickman shared that the Avengers Doomsday trailer will focus solely on Steve Rogers, highlighting his life after the events of Avengers Endgame. Rickman explained that the reason behind the teaser being Steve Rogers' focus is to confirm his return and establish him as the lead character in the upcoming crossover. We will come back to that. That is pretty wild. This is more for the normies than anything. And I think the hardcore nerd Avengers or watchers of the content will probably find that there may not be a ton of surprises for us in these teaser trailers. That is because we've been so dialed in and listening to all the stuff. Now, this will help cut out some of the noise and maybe give us more of a clear understanding of what's happening. But what I mean to say is, we already know a lot of the themes and the things that are happening in this movie, but the normies do not. And frankly, a lot of normies are so checked out that, like, dude, I've been like screaming at the top of my lungs about some of this shit. And although some of the videos get like good views, we're not getting like consistently big views, because I don't think like the normies or a lot of people are even really that dialed in. The trailers will change that. What the trailers will do is like create this movement, and it'll just sort of be an undeniable thing. So there's no thinking, oh, maybe it's about Steve Rogers. Like, no, it's going to be right in your face. It's about Steve Rogers, and he's back. And that will generate conversation amongst the normies and whatnot. But let's keep going here, okay? Meanwhile, another insider, My Time to Poop Hello, posted that Robert Downey Jr.'s Doom is supposed to go first, but Marvel Studios appears to have changed the order and placed Steve Rogers first instead. The insider also claimed that these 4 Doomsday trailers are 4 short scenes and that they will focus on different characters. The first trailer will be Steve Rogers showing riding home on a bike, and he has a baby boy. The trailer supposedly ends with the tagline that reads, Steve Rogers will return in Avengers Doomsday, followed by a December 2026 countdown to the movie's release. The scooper also mentioned that Chris Hemsworth Thor will be introduced in one of the trailers. This is an interesting strategy for Marvel Studios. Placing the focus on Steve Rogers would definitely surprise Marvel fans. Well, not us, but it will surprise a lot of normie Marvel fans. Okay, so that's kind of like what's going on. Okay. Now let's talk about a couple of things that are in the trailer and what it could mean. And then we'll get into some concerns. We'll talk about how even the trailers could be lying, which I think is obvious. For whatever reason, I think a lot of scoopers and insiders are missing this. But if you know the history of the Russos, they hide shit in trailers. They lie in the trailers, okay? So anyway, so Steve Rogers' scene, coming home, riding on a bike, and by home, we clearly mean the place with him and Peggy, the world, or rather the home that he made with Peggy after Endgame. And he has a baby boy. So, pretty wild. This was something that around September, My Time to Shine had leaked out around that time because she heard about it in September and all the trailers and stuff, right? So this was something that was on our radar. And in fact, I did a members stream. We do a lot of public live streams, but we do some stuff that's extra behind the scenes for the members. One of the member streams we did was doing a watch party for an old Marvel animated movie that's actually on YouTube. And this, I think it was called like The Next Avengers or something. And it's literally about Captain America's son. And James is the kid's name. And this is an interesting movie because that's kind of where this character hails from. There is some precedence in comics as well for Cap having children in some alternate timelines and whatnot, right? But it is quite interesting that they're putting it right on Front Street, that Steve Rogers is the lead, that he is the focus, and that he has a child. Now, that will spark a lot of conversation in the fandom. And it will spark a lot of conversation amongst normies. And I think there's layers to this, right? So I think the first obvious layer, and the article points this out, and a lot of the scoopers, like Daniel's not going to let this shit go. Look, I've told you this before, but there are a lot of scoopers and insiders that, I mean, I don't really know how else to say it. They lean left, they're progressive, and they're super butthurt about Steve Rogers being the lead and coming back and overshadowing Sam and sort of, even beyond that, what I've heard is Marvel Studios sort of returning to form, going away from some of the stuff they did that was all new, all different Marvel, maybe an overcompensation of wanting to be representative, et cetera, et cetera. Look, I don't really know how else to say it. A lot of these scoopers are left-leaning, you know, wokesters or whatever, and they're butthurt about what's happening at Marvel Studios, and they're going to fucking complain about Steve Rogers being the lead. That's just what it is. That is going to happen. But having said that, I do think it's fair to discuss that, to have those conversations, to like try to dissect that, okay? At the end of the day, this is acknowledging that if they want to get anywhere near Endgame money, they have to go back to Endgame characters and Endgame story. And what I'll say to the fans of Sam Wilson's Captain America and to the people that maybe the scoopers that are maybe a little concerned or butthurt about this, don't sleep on Sam's story. The scene in Endgame where Sam is given the shield, I think will become more significant, and Sam's role as Captain America will become more significant based on what Steve Rogers found out about the multiverse and what's been what really has been going on, okay? That's a little bit of speculation, but like, I think that shit is going to happen. One of the things the Russos and McFeely are incredible at is these retcons, which is what that means is retroactive continuity, right? They're able to do these incredible retcons to add emphasis and like the spiritual power of separate scenes and elements from Marvel's past, right? So, you know, I don't think when On Your Left was written for Civil War that they knew that Sam would say on your left in Endgame when everybody comes back at the end when there's no hope. Like, you know what I'm saying? But they're able to go back and say, hey, this is a really cool thread that fans love. How can we pay that off, make it better, and bring it full circle? They are really good at that. And so I would have to imagine that a lot of what was done with Steve and Tony in Endgame will be paid off in this story. Okay, so that's what I'll say to the people that are actually truly concerned about that. But yes, this is a move to go back to what worked before. I think it was in 2022, and maybe it was 2023, but this was when Tatiana Siegel did a huge article, I believe it was in Variety. And look, go back and read that shit. It's crazy because she knew exactly what was going on and like couched everything in this really weird way and hid stuff. But basically, like, that was the article in which they talked about how there was plans to go back to the old Avengers, that they were going back to the old, that Downey's coming back, that Doctor Doom might be leaned into. It's like weird. You can look at all of the couching and stuff that she did back then, but it was accurate. Marvel decided, they made a conscious choice that the things that were going on in Phase 4 and 5 were not working, that those characters had no motion, that to try to make a movie that would pay off all of those characters and market the film as that would be a mistake. And it looks like what they did was took ideas and concepts that they wanted to explore in the Nomad show, which we know from leaks from Bo DeMeo mostly, that was something Marvel was working on. It was a really big deal, and they couldn't crack it. It would appear a lot of those concepts and ideas, which I think Michael Waldron was completely aware of when he was writing the Loki show Bible, when he was writing the actual episodes of Loki, and then when he was writing the 17+ drafts of Multiverse of Madness. I think he was aware of how important all of this endgame stuff and just the whole thing for going back to the old was actually going to be. Okay, I'll take it one step further. I will say this. This is speculation. What I'm about to say here is speculation. But there's some people hinting that this is real, and I think this is possibly what it is. Remember, too, that around this time in September was when My Time to Shine and all these other scoopers started talking about Doctor Doom having a family and about Doctor Doom losing his family. Okay? And there seemed to be something in between the lines of what they were suggesting, that there would be a juxtaposition against Captain America and his family and the choices that Steve made, and Doctor Doom and his family and the choices that he made. And I think we're going to see that. I wonder if Marvel is going to spell it out completely or let it linger a bit. But where my head goes is that Steve, especially upon trying to return the stones, will discover something about the 616 timeline and potentially discover maybe the same thing that Doom will discover, that this is fake. It is rewritten, not what it once was. It's a lie. And yet Steve will choose to live within the lie and have a family. And I think the juxtaposition will be Doom will have a family, and you know, maybe, yes, what Steve does destroys his family and he wants vengeance, but that doesn't feel very Doctor Doom. What feels very Doctor Doom is Victor realizing his family is fake, and instead of Steve, who decides, hey, look, maybe this is fake, but I love this kid and I love my wife and I'm gonna live here, Doom may say, yo, fuck this fake ass. This is not my beautiful wife. This is not my beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, Doom might destroy it all. He might sacrifice his own world, his own family, his own son, because he's so scorned by the idea that he was given a fake life and imprisoned in this lie that he can't find the love within the prison, and he must destroy it. And look, that's just speculation, but like, I've heard some people out there hinting that there's gonna be something about Steve and his family and potentially Victor and his family and how that's all gonna work together. So that's the basics of it, guys. Let's look at chat. Let's see what you guys are thinking. Then I want to talk about the concerns. I want to talk about how this might be a lie.